For having me to talk to you about mental health and resilience today. I've been told that I've got 15 minutes to fix all of your problems, so I'm going to do my level best. I actually have 7 minutes, and Rajna has 7 minutes, so between the two of us, we will attempt to help you out. So the topic of today is learning to let go and get unstuck. And what I want to achieve with this talk today in a short period of time is basically understanding why awareness, self-awareness, is important when it comes to regulating your own emotions at work and at home, and to learn how to recognize unhelpful thoughts and behavior patterns, to assess whether you're currently thriving or whether you are just surviving at the moment, especially after the year that we all had, and to teach you tools for letting go of unhelpful thoughts, to help you with emotions so you can stop looping when you feel stuck. We've all had those nights where thoughts go round and round and we can't seem to let go. And then we want to teach you very quickly how to learn to hack into your nervous system to access a state of calm or a state of focus whenever you need to. So, adult self-soothing. I affectionately call this the dummy effect. Now, who can identify with sleepless nights where thoughts just go round and round? Is there anyone in this room who's never had that happen to them? No? No hands? What about not being able to eat because your stomach's twisted in knots, you're nervous, or you've got anxiety about a big meeting or a deadline, or the alternative would be constantly seeking solace with food or alcohol, or whatever your poison is, spending or cigarettes or even drugs. And who in this room does not have coffee in the morning to wake up? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So about 3%. How abhorrent to all of you coffee drinkers is the idea of starting your day without caffeine? Does it give you the heebie-jeebies? No? That's good. Who gets home from work, conversely, at the other end of the day, and you're so hyped up and stressed out from what's gone on that you just have to have a glass of wine or a beer to wind down and actually ease into the evening? Is there anyone who doesn't do that or has never done that? Oh, this is better than the coffee. This is good. So, question for you all. How frightened would you be if this was taken away? And I'm talking about all self-soothing. So no longer can you caffeinate when you're tired. No longer can you use alcohol when you feel stressed or unhappy. No longer can you go shopping or binge on Netflix. You can't put your dummy in. You just have to face up to this unpleasant reality. How upsetting would that be? Yeah. Yeah. Not good, eh? So it would be quite uncomfortable. So humans for eons have desperately tried to escape their reality through various means, and we've got much more advanced with the ways that we do it in this day and age. But I want to take a step back from the soothing and just ask you all, do you currently feel in your life right now that you're thriving? Or do you feel that you're just surviving day to day? Have a think about that for a moment. And particularly, think back to maybe, say, 10 years ago or even 20 years ago. Do you recognize yourself now from who you were back then? Have you achieved your hopes and your dreams? Would the person today have something to say to that person 10 or 20 years ago, or vice versa? Are you living the life you dreamed of, basically? Have you achieved what you wanted to with your life? And if not, what is it that's crept up on you? Because those things that have crept up on you are what are making you put that dummy in your mouth repeatedly on a day-to-day basis. Can you all see this okay, this mental health continuum? Little bit crammed in terms of the text, but the concept that I want to introduce is there's a continuum of mental health that ranges from very healthy to quite ill. So to give you some examples of healthy, people are high functioning, they will have normal mood fluctuations, but they'll be able to bounce back pretty quickly. They can sleep well, their appetite's well controlled, they're social, they can connect with people, they're doing well. And that's the optimum human state that we all want to be in, so that's the green. So obviously I'm not going to ask you to all stand up and say, I'm red, or I'm green, or I'm a little bit dodgy and borderline, and some days are worse than others. But just think in your head where, when we talk about these states, you sit. The next place along the spectrum is reactive. So these are common and reversible little blips that we have in life. And you might get some transient symptoms like being a bit more irritable or feeling a bit anxious or nervous, having a little bit of forgetfulness or feeling that your brain's not quite as sharp, trouble sleeping. But this should be brief and transient. And what you need to learn in life is to recognize when you're in that reactive state and actually take a step back into the green. And we're going to teach you about some tips for how to do that. Now, if you've gone into the reactive state and either you're not self-aware or things are too hard and you can't manage it by yourself, sometimes things can slip into the injured state. And in the injured state, people are feeling adverse to negative emotions like they're angry, they're really irritable, they've got lingering sadness or symptoms of depression. They may be tearful, they may be unable to concentrate at work. They could be really preoccupied, unable to sleep. Appetite can be affected. People will fight more with their partners and their children and their work colleagues. Now, this is a sign of someone who's suffering with an injured state of mental wellness or mental health. And that's the state in which we really would encourage you to reach out to your colleagues and your friends and family and to actually seek some professional help from your GP or from someone like Rajna. Because what we don't want is for you to step into the ill red section, the red alert section where you've got significant functional impairment. So in this place, you can have real difficulty with your emotions. So we're talking prolonged deep depressive symptoms, panic attack disorders, insomnia, feeling overwhelmed, feeling constantly fatigued. And people in this category often get physically quite sick as well. Their immune systems may not function so well. And it may, at its very worst, progress to suicidal thoughts and ideation. And that's something that we never want for any human. And those people desperately need to be given some professional care. So in your mind, just pick a color and sow that seed of where am I on this continuum? Am I safe? Am I a little bit borderline? Have I got some red flags? And if anyone wants to come and talk to us afterwards about any aspect of this talk, then Rajna and I would be really happy to have a conversation. So to introduce some concepts, research actually estimates that 90% of illness and disease is stress-related. Did you know that only 1% of cancer is hereditary? Is that a shock to anyone? Yeah. The rest is environmental exposure. So your genes do not determine that you're going to get cancer. Actually, your environment determines whether you're going to get cancer or disease. And this demonstrates that there's a massive connection between mind and body. If you have a sick mind, you're in the yellow or the red category, it's highly likely you're going to follow on and have a sick body. If you've got a healthy mind, it's highly likely you've got a lot of protective measures in place to have a healthy body physically. We walk around daily having at least 60,000 thoughts. Now that is pretty tiring and overwhelming to carry that burden of constant thoughts. And the problem is that all of us are wired from prehistoric times to have this negativity bias. Now, it exists for survival purposes. Imagine you are outside, the sun's shining, there's flowers. I don't know if they had birds and bees in prehistoric times, but there's some sort of nice animal, flora, fauna going on. You're enjoying life. And all of a sudden, you've got all of this attention on this positive aspect of your environment. And there's a saber-toothed tiger that jumps around the corner, growls at you. Now, can you imagine your odds for survival if you had the same attention span and bias cognitively for these lovely positive aspects of your environment and the saber-toothed tiger? You're not going to live very long. So our brains are hardwired to seek out threats to our potential survival and to hone in like crazy on them to the detriment of all the good stuff in life. Now, the issue is there are no saber-toothed tigers anymore. There's just overflowing work inbox emails. There's deadlines for work. There's financial issues. There's naughty teenage children. There's partner and work colleague issues. So they are the new saber-toothed tigers of this environment. And our poor little prehistorically programmed brains are still running on autopilot going, where's the danger? Where's the danger? How do I keep myself safe? So with thinking, we've got 60,000 thoughts a day. We've got a negativity bias for survival going on that hasn't changed despite our environment changing drastically. And 95% of our thoughts are the same today as they were yesterday, hence feeling stuck or looping around and around. I wanted to think of a title for this talk that would actually resonate with people, and I think we've probably all been in that scenario where we've got thoughts going round and round that we can't quite break free of. And that's because that's the way we're wired. So the majority of our thoughts, unfortunately, because of this negativity bias, are negative. And most of the time, that little I statement that we have, I'm tired, or I'm sick of this, or this person's not being very nice to me, they're not true, these statements. But our brain just consistently churns them out. So these negative thoughts can make us and our lives feel very sort of constricted. All these thoughts are laser focused on what's wrong, and we can really lose sight of what's right. We're constantly thinking, and that doesn't necessarily enrich our lives. It actually makes our lives feel quite claustrophobic. So you could be in the most beautiful mansion with sea views and the sun shining, but you've got a thought in your head about this problem at work or this issue that you can't fix, and it's just going round and round, and it's like all of your focus has gone to a laser pinpoint on what's wrong, and all this beautiful stuff is just cast by the wayside. I'm going to do a little exercise to demonstrate that in a sec. So the trick is to avoid fusing with that internal dialogue. Fusing is when you allow yourself to get carried away with your thoughts, and all of a sudden you blink and you think, oh, where was I? Oh, I was in that place in my head that I didn't really want to go, and I've got carried away. And we want to allow more space day to day. So it's like maintaining a bird's eye view for more peace and clarity, rather than being stuck in the trenches. So I'd like you all to take your hands in front of you, and just take your hands and open them like the pages of a book. And imagine your hands are now your thoughts. So fusing with your thoughts, where you get carried away, is where your thoughts are here. Now, if you all bring your hands up to your face, what can you see? Nothing but your thoughts. So this is called fusion. And how much are you all missing out on right now? There's a big block in what you can perceive in your environment. So what would it be like to go around fused to your thoughts like this each day? Because you're missing out on life around you, and it's pretty difficult to act effectively. So it's also pretty heavy. Like some of you have already put your hands down, haven't you? It's like, oh, just imagine carrying these thoughts around like this. If they were a book, your arms would be pretty tired. So what we want to teach you is to slowly, if you put your hands up again, I want you to slowly lower your hands to here and notice how much space you've got around your thoughts. Your thoughts are still here. You can't get rid of thoughts, but you've actually just created a bigger view of the horizon, and it's a little bit easier to get things done, and it's slightly less tiring on your hands. So now if you put your hands on your lap, you've still got your thoughts, but you've got a huge amount of space and clarity. You've got that bird's eye view. It's not tiring anymore. You're not having to hold them up physically, so it takes less effort. And it's just allowing that we all will have all of these thoughts coming through daily, but it's teaching you how to put them down. And say, oh, this one's useful. Well, that's a bright idea. That's innovative. I'll use that for work. But this thought about, oh, what am I going to do? How am I going to pay the bills? How am I going to pay the bills? How am I going to pay the bills? Not helpful. Just put it down. So that hands as thought exercise was devised by a very famous guy called Russ Harris. And if you're interested in his work, he's got lots of good little short clips on YouTube. So some self-soothing tactics. Cognitive dissonance is a term that we use when we don't like our reality. We try to escape from it. So this can be via ignoring it, denial, distraction, basically avoiding facing up to it at all costs. And we do this with things like eating chocolate, drinking alcohol, shopping, binging on Netflix, etc. I would love to hear if there's anyone in this room who has never self-soothed in their life. Please come and talk to me afterwards, because you may be a robot. But it's important to realize that these maladaptive self-soothing tactics, they don't actually make the emotion, the unpleasant reality or experience go away. And some of them can actually be really harmful. So did you know that just women in particular drinking more than 1 unit of alcohol each night can increase your risk of breast cancer by 10%? And moderate drinking is considered just 1 unit of alcohol for women each night and 2 for men. So that may come as an unpleasant shock. More than this has been associated with an increased risk of high blood pressure, strokes, and many different types of cancer. So some of these self-soothing tactics have a lot to answer for and can cause more trouble later on. So how can you self-care better on a moment-to-moment basis to reduce stress and anxiety? There's a lot of discussion going on now, because I knew those little tactics would be unpleasant to hear about the drinking. So what you need to do is just stop. And I'd love you to take one thing away from today, hands as thoughts. Just think, where are my hands? Are my hands up here? Take a breath. You can do a body check for where you're holding tension, and try to name the emotion behind the constant dialogue. So if you find that your brain is going round and round telling you this little story about why you're sad or hungry or tired or what's wrong, take a step back from that and try to identify the underlying emotion with just one word. So the narrative is a cue that you need to go a layer deeper to assess what's going on. So that concludes my 7 minutes, which, sorry, I think I ran slightly over, to help fix everything that's wrong. And Rajna is going to give you some strategies now. Thank you.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me? Yes. Yeah? So 15 minutes.
I'm sorry.
So I've got 30 seconds left. I'll do my very best. I'll do my 4 sec, 3, 2, 1. I'm done. I'm done. No, okay, so really quickly, strategies. Some of you may know these already, others may not, but I'll try do my best to talk about some strategies today. So first of all, I think it's really important to talk about some really healthy and strengthening self-soothing exercises that all of you, or I guess some strategies that all of you can use even after you sort of leave today. So first and foremost, human connection. Do not underestimate the need for human connection. This can be with your partners, with your colleagues, with your kids. We're all quite isolated these days, working very long hours, so do connect with other humans. Talking, this can be obviously talking with a professional like myself, or just talking to colleagues, you know, that you may trust and respect, and obviously family. Having quiet time, contemplative time, whether it's meditation or mindfulness. Time in nature, many of you may know the green prescription, which a lot of doctors are prescribing nowadays, so being able to be out and about in nature, being able to go to, you know, forests and parks. Exposure to sunlight, especially in the mornings, and physical exercise, of course, and sort of things like saunas are fantastic. Now, I do want to ask you all just a very quick question. This is a contemplative question for you just to think about within yourselves. So how comfortable would you be if a colleague reached out to you today, let's say after this talk, or maybe tomorrow, wanting to connect over something difficult in their lives? So how comfortable would you be talking to a colleague, if a colleague came into your office and just said, oh, hey, mate, I just really want to, you know, talk to you about something that's going on in my life? I can guarantee that many of you would probably be quite comfortable with that. So the next question is, how comfortable would you feel approaching a colleague with one of your own problems? Now, usually what happens with this exercise is that people are very comfortable for the first one and not very comfortable for the second one. So they're not comfortable approaching their colleagues, but they're comfortable hearing other people's concerns. And we won't go into why this is today, but it's just an important concept to know and think about within the context of mental health, stigma, you know, some of those things. Now, this concept of the wound is not a very pretty metaphor, but this is the way I sort of look at mental health. So the festering wound, which is kind of this wound of I guess, mental unwellness, won't ever heal, no matter how professional or wonderful the Band-Aid solution, and sort of, I guess this is what Eula was talking about in terms of some of the self-soothing strategies we might use, some of the maladaptive or negative ones, but it does need, in order to heal, some light, exposure, you know, exposure to, I guess, sunlight metaphorically, and to be cleaned out. And this is kind of what we do in therapy. It's not as dramatic as this, but it's a lot more respectful. So it can hurt initially and of course immediately, but afterwards the pain will subside. And I guess what I'm trying to say there, oh, is it working on your end? Is it working? Oh, okay, it's working. But I guess what we're talking about in terms of the wound is to be able to, I guess, receive, you know, accept therapy, you know, speak to your colleagues, and I guess be able to be more open and I guess have less stigmas and taboos around talking about mental health. Now, when we talk about mental health or we talk about the brain, we talk about neurons, of course, and some of you may have heard this term, neurons that fire together, wire together, fire together, sorry. Now, what we mean here is that essentially what Eula was saying in terms of the saber-toothed tiger, you know, coming towards us, our brain is designed to seek out threat and to keep you safe. And we all have this, what I call sort of a superhighway of tightly bound, you know, neurons that wire together and therefore fire when we feel anxious, scared, lonely, depressed, overwhelmed. And what we're trying to do when we sort of whether it's do therapy or when it's kind of sort of coaching or trying to teach people new, I guess, ways of thinking, is to learn strategies to think in an alternative way. Now, if you've got a super highway of the way that you think, I often talk about the alternative as kind of a muddy, rickety road that isn't kind of being utilized right now. And we're trying to engage, or I guess, learn new strategies to be able to learn how to navigate that new muddy road. So neurons that wire together together, fire together, but what we're trying to do is go through uncharted territory, I guess, and choose, I guess, new and more adaptive ways of thinking to be able to solve your problems, as opposed to reaching for the alcohol, medication, Netflix, that kind of stuff. So how to do this, how to drive the road less traveled. Building self-awareness first and foremost. It's very difficult in the minutes that I have left to talk about how to gain self-awareness. There's lots of ways to do this, people. First of all, obviously, meditation, journaling, mindfulness, that kind of stuff. You can also seek out, I guess, feedback from your colleagues, or from, maybe not colleagues, people that you, well, maybe colleagues, but people that you really, really are guaranteed to get a clear answer from, and people that you love and respect. But the first one, when I spoke about sort of mindfulness and meditation, those kind of things, a great way to, I guess, be able to attain self-awareness is through grounding. Now, some really good grounding techniques that some of you already may know about. The first one is the 4-4-4 technique. It's a breathing exercise, and it's actually one that I used to teach SAS soldiers back in Melbourne when I worked there, and it's something that I teach New Zealand police officers currently. It's called the 4-4-4 technique, tactical breathing, box breathing, whatever you want to call it. You breathe in for 4 from your belly, not from your chest, but from your belly. You hold for 4. You breathe out for 4 and then hold for 4. That's how it works. And the second one is short, sharp inhalation. So you have to do it through your nose. So you just breathe in through your nose, short, sharp, and then you pause and then do a slow exhalation. This is some really good grounding techniques for you. So again, when we talk about mental health and when we talk about the how-tos, a lot of the reasons why we don't seek help and a lot of the reasons why we don't attain some of the goals that we'd like to is because of shame and guilt surrounding, I guess, mental unwellness. And I love this quote by Brene Brown. Some of you might like Brene Brown and maybe have heard this quote before. I'll just read it out to you quickly. So if you put shame in a petri dish, it needs 3 things to grow exponentially: secrecy, silence, and judgment. If you put the same amount of shame in a petri dish and douse it with empathy, it can't survive. The antidote to shame is empathy. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is that life is really hard if you're constantly mean to yourself, if you have no self-love and you're not able to empathize with yourself, if you're constantly, whipping yourself. You don't need anyone else to be mean to you. You can do it all by yourself. But we only have one home. We're only housed in our own body, and it's much easier to be well and to have better mental health when actually you're quite kind to yourself and have empathy towards yourself. So that's my one tip for today. So lastly, my very last slide, what can you actually do today to be able to achieve some better wellness, more calm, maybe some relaxation, and dare I say it, better mental health? So there's some things you can do to relax. First and foremost, some breath work. Second of all, progressive muscle relaxation, or that kind of short, sharp inhalation. Progressive muscle relaxation is an amazing thing. I do it every night personally. I love it. You can do it from top to toe or toe to top, where you contract your muscles and then let them go. Just Google it, YouTube it. There's plenty of stuff out there. In order to be able to achieve some of our desired outcomes when it comes to mental health, you can't just do it. You can't just think your way better to better mental health. You need to have focused, I like to call it focused visualization. You need to visualize where you want to get to, and this is obviously good in all life scenarios. Second of all, what actually do you want to achieve? What's the target that you're actually trying to attain? What level of wellness are you trying to attain? And lastly, being able to select goals that align with your purpose and actually values. You've got to figure out what your values and purpose is first and foremost, and then be able to align your life with that. And I guess lastly, this is a bit of a joke, you can do this obviously you can do this at home, you can do the things that we've discussed in a park, wherever you feel, or at your desk actually. A lot of things that we've discussed can be done at your desk. Hopefully it's a standing desk, because we all know sitting is the new smoking. So hopefully many of you have standing desks. If not, get your bosses to, help you to get one. And that's me. That's me.